Hi everyone, it's Lara. Thank you so much for watching. Today's video is the very last part of my DIY winter coat series. If you missed the first 3 parts, don't worry, I have listed links to the videos down below in the description box. And in today's video I will show you how I have sewn together the lining part of the coat with the main part, and I will also explain a few additional steps that I had to go through in order to finish the coat. So if you want to know how I have done that, then please keep watching, and also make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss any future projects. And now let's get into this. Here we have our lining. I have already sewn the fluffy collar in place. When I was pinning the collar in place, I made sure that the fluffy side was facing the good side of the lining. I was really careful here because here I have my cord. I made sure that the end of the cord is still loose so that I couldn't hang my cord. You can see that I can easily pull 3 fingers to the cord. I think this is a really good width, but feel free to make it more narrow or wider if you feel that it would be better for your coat. And the side where the flap is over the zipper needs to be open about 2 or 2.5 inches. Now I think it's like 2 inches at the end, maybe a little bit more, less, because this would otherwise cover the zipper. So that might not make sense right now when I show it to you how it's going to look like that. It's gonna form kind of an L at the end, but I am going to start pinning the lining and the coat together, and once you see it in place, it's gonna be probably, for those who have never sewn lining in place, more understandable. So let's pin everything together now. I have here now the coat and the lining pinned together. I'm going to show you first here on the table a few sections separately, and then we will go downstairs. I will set my camera down there and show you the entire coat, because I think it is both important to see, especially for beginners. So I have started pinning the pieces around the collar. This is something what I always do for a start. Then I will sew here quite, can you see that? Quite close to the end, because there is not so much seam allowance. I will have a bit more seam allowance on the top. So now I'm going to zoom out again so that you can see the whole collar. So on the other side, this is the upper flap. It's the same. I will copy the line of where the velvet collar on the other side has been sewn in, and it will end here about where the zipper has been sewn in as well. I hope that makes sense. So that would be the color. One thing I always like to do is I like pulling the lining sleeves through the sleeves of the velvet coat. I always put them to the bad side, and then I pull the lining sleeves through it, because that way they won't stay in place. Oh, I did it quite crappily, so now I can pull my hand through, see? This is always better, because then it won't be in place. Then around the flaps and the zipper, I left it open. And the next thing, okay, I swear that was the zipper, even though that sounded bad. And the next thing I have pinned together is the end of the coat. So I folded the fabric here, I'm gonna show you, of the lining, and let's zoom in so that the camera will focus with its own light additionally to the softbox. I hope you can see that. Now it should be easier to see. So here is where the fabric of the main part of the velvet coat stops. So this is the line which I want to sew together with the lining. So let's say I would fold the flap away, so the lining and the coat would form one single line here. So this is how much I need to fold in. Good, I'm gonna open the flap again. So I folded it here at the end, and then I started pinning the bottom part of the coat together, the lining and the velvet part. And now let's have a look at the entire coat. Here we have the coat in its full size. So this is the lining, and here is the bad side of the velvet part. If you feel overwhelmed by things like that, when you have a huge piece that needs to be sewn together, try to picture it as just a fabric that needs to be sewn together straight. This is what I always do. When I was making my first coat, I felt like, holy moly, this thing is heavy. And it is heavy. There's a lot of fabric, there's the hood, the plush, and the zipper and everything. But once you sew it together, you will see it's not as bad as it looks. So anyway, I wanted to show you this. So here again, the colors pinned together, and then just the bottom pinned together. And that's pretty much it. So we have to sew the collar now together with a straight stitch. Then we have to sew the bottom line, the bottom part together with a straight stitch. Then I will remove the pin. And when I turn the coat, then I'm going to come back here so that you can see the full coat first, and then we will look at the other details. Here we have the coat when I have turned the lining in, and I have pinned it everywhere in place around the edges. I'm going to show you again on my sewing table upstairs some details. Also, I'm not sure if I said it wrong, but I think I kind of explained this poorly when it comes to the collar. So I'm going to go over this part again. Let's start with the sleeves. So once I turned the lining over, I have turned the sleeves of the velvet to the good side, and I have pulled the lining sleeves through. And here I pinned the ends together because this is where I will be sewing on the fluffy cuffs, and I always like sewing the ends together first because then it's easier for me to pin the cuffs in place. Then I will be sure that the lining wouldn't turn. It is very important that the seams on the lining and on the sleeves match. So that would be the sleeves. Here we have the bottom. That was quite easy. I just turned the lining over once I have sewn it in place, and now I'm just gonna pin it in place. I'm going to probably even draw a line with the crayon so that I know how far I will sew through. I'm gonna sew through about that far from the end. Can you see something? The dark fabric and filming never goes together, so I think it's gonna be a bit more than an inch. That's how far from the edge I want to sew together. I'm gonna measure it on several places, make marks, and then I'm going to draw a line. So this is probably one of the easiest part. And here we have the flaps. So let's start with the flap that goes over the zipper from the top. So I folded the fabric inwards, and then let me zoom in so that you can see how far I came. So it needs to be a bit further from the zipper because otherwise you wouldn't be able to close it. And once I reach the end of the zipper, I can move a little bit closer to the edge. Yeah, you see that? This is the end of the now I'm speaking German, front part of the coat. I think now you can see it better. There's still some thread in it. So those two will align below the zipper, and that will go all the way down to the bottom. So that would be this. Let's have a look at the color again. So I'm not sure if I said it correctly, but I was pointing out that there is a line where the velvet color has been sewn to the velvet part of the coat that we need to copy, but you must not sew through this line when you sew the lining and the coat together, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to turn this here over to the good side properly. When you sew the color on, you must sew only this edge and then the upper edge, the rounded edge, together. And then when you turn the lining to the good side, so then you shape the edge again. I always take scissors, as I have already said, and make sure that here is a nice edge at the end. Now, here we have the line that I mentioned, And this is where you need to align the edge of the fluffy part with it. So like this. And you pin it in place, and this is where you need to hand stitch it. And then you fold over the velvet fabric and you will align it with the seam that was for the zipper, so that the edge of the lining is exactly where the seam is, and this is where you pin it in place. So I hope that made sense. Let's have a look at the sleeves. The cuffs are basically a rectangular shape that has been sewn on one side together, and then I have sewn it to the end of my sleeve. The cuff needs to be as wide as the sleeve, and this measurement depends on how big you want your cuffs to be. I'm going to fold the cuff over because I want to show you also how it looks when it has been sewn on from the good side. The faux fur has kind of a direction of the hair. They show to one side, and I wanted that the hair will show to the bottom. So when I was pinning the sleeve on, when it was still turned like this, let me turn this quickly back, then the hair would show upwards, so that when I fold it over, that it would show downwards. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm going to turn the sleeve to the bad side, and I will fold the cuff in the middle and pin it in place. And I have already done it on the second sleeve so that I can show you right now. So this is how it's going to look like. You can see how much wider the cuff actually is, and then when you fold it, then it is not as wide. It's, for me, the perfect width. I like it like that. And also it makes the sleeves a bit longer. I like it when they go till here. I love having my arms covered in fluff, so yeah. And once I finish also pinning in place the second cuff, that's going to be it for the coat and the sewing machine. So the rest is going to be only hand stitching, but there is one more thing I have to do, and that is to make a belt. And for that I will still need my sewing machine, so I'm still going to leave it out. But right now I'm going to turn over the second sleeve, pin the cuff in place, then I'm just gonna hang it to the side, and then I will work on the belt, of course, together with you guys. Now let's have a look at how I will make my belt. I have used the entire time when I was trying the coat on just a simple elastic band belt with a buckle in the front. The buckle is absolutely not special, but I like it maybe just because it's not special. I'm honestly not really sure which side is the good side, but I guess this should be this one. That's the way how the elastic band has been sewn in. So I'm gonna keep this buckle, and here I have the elastic band that I took down and a rectangular piece of velvet that has been folded in the middle and pinned together on one side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to position the elastic band on the fabric, and I'm gonna mark how far it goes, and this is where I will sew the rectangular piece of the velvet through. Then I'm going to turn it to the good side and insert the elastic band. And of course also it's supposed to be stretchy, so the elastic band, when I fold it like this, is a bit longer than, I mean not the elastic band, the velvet piece is longer than the elastic band. That's what I wanted to say. So now I'm turning the velvet part to the good side. I took a brush that I don't use anymore for painting because the end is kind of crappy, and I'm just pushing it through. Oh my gosh, sometimes it's really not easy. I am pulling the elastic band now through. What I wanted to show you is that once you reach the end of the elastic band on one side, definitely pin it in place, adjust the seam so that it's perfectly on the side, put in at least 2 pins so that you can't accidentally pull the elastic bands through. This is definitely important, and then I will finish pulling it towards the other end. Honestly guys, I have probably the crappiest pins ever. They tend to open constantly, and I had to do this twice And I'm afraid the crap opened again and I'm almost at the end, so this is really frustrating, but I think I'm gonna be able to pull it through anyway. Now, here we go. Here's the other end. And now I'm going to pin also the other end in place. And once it will be sewn through, I will pull it through the buckle, fold it over, and then I will sew it in place. And since the end is not so pretty, I'm going to put a strip of faux leather over it, and that way it's going to look good. So I folded a piece of faux leather like this in place, the good side facing the velvet part, and I will sew it here through. And now I have folded it over like this, so from the good side you will see only velvet, and from the other side of the belt you will see the faux leather strip, and I will just sew it here through, and then the belt will be done. My sleeves are turned to the bad side and I started hand stitching them. I already finished one. Now I just have to finish this one. This is actually quite easy, and since it is on the bad side and the fur is, as I've already mentioned, very forgiving, that goes actually very fast. The faux fur has been stitched on now, and this is how the sleeves look like once they have been turned to the good side. The coat is finished now. It took me in total 6 long afternoons and a lot of back pain, but it was definitely worth it. And now we will go through all the last steps that I had to do in order to finish the coat. So first of all, I have stitched the edge of the collar on a few more places because I thought when I hang the coat on the loop here, it would put too much stress on the few stitches, because the coat is quite heavy. I mean, it's not super heavy, but it is still a lot of weight. So I have stitched the collar here through in the middle, and then also in the middle of the front piece or front part of the coat. You can see it because I made sure that I would stitch only through the edge where the seam is. This is very important. The faux fur, the longer faux fur on the hood is also stitched on. I have added one more snap on the collar because I feel it looks kind of better when there are two. I don't know why. This is of course just personal preference. One would be enough, but I felt like this is kind of more what you normally would see on coats. And then I added 2 snaps on the flaps of the hood so that I could close it when it gets really cold. So this is the upper part. The next thing I have done is I have adjusted the lining here to the front seam, and I have stitched it through on 3 places so that it wouldn't kind of tend to come to the front, so the coat stays kind of nicer. And I have added here also 1 snap at the end of the zipper. I am not sure if it's necessary. I might even remove it later because I feel it's not doing really much. But I had on one of my coats a snap exactly at the same place, so I'll see if it's even something that needs to be there. I will just go a few times without closing this, and then a few times when it's closed, and then I will see if it's even something that you really have to do. The last thing I have done is that I have stitched through several places just on one point on my belt, because there's the seam and it kind of tends to turn whenever you stretch the belt out, and you know, the velvet kind of sticks together and then it turns it, and it bugs me. So I mean, it's not a huge thing, but I stretched it out and then I put pins on a few places so that I could saw through that the seam wouldn't turn. It still turns on a few places, so I will have to do it on a few more places, but other than that, the coat is done, and now I will put it on for you. Here we go. This is my new fluffy, warm and cozy winter coat. I have closed the collar also. Now I'm going to put the hood on for you. So this is how it looks like with the hood on. I'm gonna turn. We're gonna go also outside so that you can see the entire length and how it looks like when I have also shoes on. And whenever it gets really windy, I will just simply close the snaps and then I won't care at all. So this is how I made my new winter coat. I am not a professional, so I will not claim that the way how I have done things was perfect, but it worked perfectly for me and I'm super happy with the result. I love my new winter coat. I had it already on for a few days because we had a few cold days in the last 2 weeks and I just love it. It's so fluffy and warm and I'm really happy with the result, and that's all that matters. It took me in total 6 afternoons. I've been working 4 till 5 hours per day. I could have done it probably a little bit faster if I weren't filming, because that took some time too. But you also have to keep in mind that I had a lot of practice because I've been sewing since my 6th year and I'm 41 now, so that is a long time and I had a lot of practice. So if you're new to this, you will probably need a little bit longer, but that's fine. Just take your time and trust yourself that you can do it. A few tips at the end. The first tip is something I have already said in the first part. Stay hydrated. You need to drink lots of water and don't forget it when you're sewing. I keep forgetting that. That's why I'm so anal retentive about that, and that's why I keep repeating it. Make sure you drink at least 1 big glass of water each hour. The second tip is trust yourself. You can do this. It might look overwhelming. It's a lot of work, but think positive. You can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. It's just practice, and very often all you have to do is to picture something in your mind and you have to believe that you are able to do that. And the third tip is do not sew more than like 4 or 5 hours per day, otherwise you will have a lot of back pain. I get a lot of back pain from sewing anyway. This is one of the reasons why I never sew for others, because my back always hurts like hell. But I have noticed if I try to kind of reduce it to maximum 4 or 5 hours, it is way better. So your back is definitely gonna thank me. So this is all I had to say in addition to the tutorials. I hope that you enjoyed the series. I hope that the videos were helpful for you. If you liked today's video, don't forget to give it a thumb up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss any future projects. Just hit the button above me or the one down below. You can also follow me on Instagram. You will find a link to my Instagram account in the description box, together with links to part 1, 2, and 3 of this series. And I have listed there also several playlists that might be interesting for you. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a wonderful day and see you guys next time with the next video. Bye!